hear okay? No. I don't know. I'll turn up my volume, but I don't know if that'll go. Go ahead.
We have two readings this morning. One is our non-biblical and one is our biblical. Our non-biblical reading is from Starhawk. We are longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends. Some place where we can be free. Our biblical reading is from Matthew 18 through 20. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there in their midst.
Would you pray with me? God of renewal, help us to feel your presence this morning as we gather together in person and virtually. Let your energy fill us, cleanse us, strengthen us. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be filled with your wisdom and your insight. Amen. So for the next couple of months, I've decided to preach off of a preaching resource that Sacred Journeys has graciously purchased for us. It's a resource called Soul Matters, and it does something a little bit differently. Instead of going by specific readings every week, it actually goes thematically by month. So we're going to try this and see how it works for us. The first theme set for September is the theme of renewal. And maybe it seems a little early for the concept of renewal because we're still kind of stuck in this pandemic, COVID, awful thing. And we're probably going to be here for a while. And yet, every moment is still precious. Life is still beautiful and meant to be lived. And as someone recently said to me this week, quarantining is no excuse for not participating in life. And so we're going to talk about renewal and where our souls are and how do we find renewal around us in the coming weeks. And today we're going to talk about the renewal through community. Through being here together, through being here virtually, the other communities that fill us and give us strength and help us just get through one step at a time. Let me tell you a little story first, though. So, I have one brother. Many of you have met Gary and his wife Tiffany, and they have a little boy named Declan. Declan is just about 11 years old. And he's very bright, and he's very precocious, and I love him dearly. But from the moment he was born, he has been a handful and a half. Maybe more like 3 or 4 handfuls. My brother and sister-in-law have been blessed by her parents, who have, despite the fact that they've always lived halfway across the country, have managed to spend a number of weeks, multiple times a year, staying with them and helping out, getting to know their only grandchild. But I have often wondered, I thought, boy, having your in-laws come for weeks at a time, I don't know how I feel about that. Much so, and they are wonderful people. It's still, there's the 3-day relative rule. Garbage and relatives have to go after 3 days, right? It's just a little too stressful, messes with your routines, all that good stuff. Anyway, so I finally asked my brother once, I'm like, so how is this for you? to have them visiting for so long, weeks at a time, so many times a year. And my brother said, you know, we realized something with Declan. We realized that Declan has a love bucket. And if his love bucket isn't full, then he tends to get very demanding and more of a handful. And he said, when Declan's grandparents are here, it's great because they help to fill up his love bucket. And so it's less filling that he and his wife had to be constantly doing. I thought, well, that's a really good way of looking at that. And as I was thinking about this concept of renewal, I thought about the fact that I think we each have a bucket. And we pour out of our buckets every day. We pour out for our relationships, for the people we care for, our partners and our children and our parents and our grandparents and our friends, our neighbors. We pour out for work, we pour out for our volunteer jobs, we pour out for our homes. It's a constant pouring out of our buckets. And so the question becomes, how do we fill those buckets back up? You know, as little kids, you can kind of be a little more demanding and insistent when your bucket's not full. It gets harder as an adult. You're taught to kind of, put up and shut up and just keep doing what you got to do. And we end up running on empty. Not only do we pour out of our buckets, but then sometimes life comes along and simply kicks our buckets over. And our buckets spill all over the floor, and our buckets are empty, and we have nothing left. I think many of us would probably instantly go to the concept of quiet and alone time and rest and those sorts of things for the concept of renewal. And I think all of those are absolutely important, especially if you're an introvert. You need that quiet time to renew. But I also think we need renewal through community. That it fills us in a way that simply being quiet and alone doesn't fill us. But it takes a healthy community to do that. If you're going to visit your family, which is a community, and your family is dysfunctional and negative and critical, then it probably ain't going to fill your bucket. But if you have a healthy family that is supportive and generous and all those good things, then hopefully it fills your bucket. And I think we as Sacred Journeys, by and large, are a pretty healthy community. We may not be perfect, but we're striving to be as healthy as possible. And I say that because, true confessions, there are days when I don't want to do this on Sunday mornings. Just don't have, perhaps my bucket's too empty to feel like I can go and do this well. And yet every time I come here and do this, I promise you, every time, I always leave feeling better. I may be tired, but this place and all of you and the energy and the spirit that's here in the midst of it fills me in a way that simply being alone doesn't. So do a mental check-in for a moment. What's your bucket look like right now? How full is your bucket? And I hope this is a place that helps to fill your bucket. My question becomes, what are the characteristics of a healthy community? What does a healthy community give all of us, that fills your bucket? You're going to have to talk through your masks because I still want you to talk to me. But what does a healthy community give you that fills your bucket?
Acceptance.
Acceptance.
Affirmation.
Affirmation.
Common purpose.
Common purpose.
Encouragement.
Encouragement.
Support.
Support. What else?
Compassion.
Compassion. Laughter, absolutely.
Music.
Music does something for the soul, doesn't it? Although that rap stuff, I'm sorry, I just can't get there. There's a few that are mine is sort of okay, but yeah, music for the soul. I also think it helps us not to be alone. For those of us who feel lonely sometimes when we're alone. Some of us don't, but for many people need just to feel the presence of someone else. And it gets us out of our heads a little bit. And focusing on something other than ourselves. You know, we can sit at home and it can just run like crazy. And we only have our perspective, and we ask ourselves the same questions, and we run the same scenarios, and we tell ourselves the same stories over and over and over again. To be with others broadens our perspective, gives us new stories, new insight, gets us out of our heads a little bit. All wonderful things. You know, Starbucks says that a community gives you a place where you can speak what's in your heart without fear of reprisal. So you can be who you are and be loved and accepted, as Robin said. The community, a healthy community, I think, is a place where, you know, when you walk through the door, faces light up because they're glad to see you, and arms open. I know we can't hug right now, but you know, this is a pretty huggy place on a normal basis. Because arms are open wide, and hearts are open wide, and everybody's truly happy to see one another. Communities are a place where you're affirmed and you're celebrated when you shine, and you're lifted up when you struggle. Your bucket is filled when you're feeling empty. Starbucks also unfortunately says that it's hard to find good, healthy communities, that sometimes all we get is a little bit of a glimpse of them. And yet we have to keep striving for that, to beat that, to find that, to fill our buckets. So there's a story about a bird. It's a magnificent bird. It's the most amazing creature in the whole world. This bird had a wingspan greater than anybody had ever seen. And it was beautiful, these gorgeous bright colors, the bright blues and pinks. So you're picturing this bird in your head, bright yellows. It's just an amazing creature. And it visited this one particular village every day. And when the king saw this bird, the king was just in awe. He knew that it was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen in his life. And every day he admired that bird. And he thought to himself, boy, if I could just possess that bird, I would own the most beautiful thing in the whole world. And so one day he decided that that was exactly what he was going to do. And so he called his villagers around and he ordered them to capture the bird for him and bring it to him. Well, they were a good bunch of people. They were a nice village and they cared about their king. And so they wanted to do something that would make him happy. So they set about catching this bird the next time it came to town. Except that the next time it came, it perched on the top of the highest tree in the village. And they sat there doing this, going, I don't know how we're going to get it down. And the king saw that they were uncertain, and so he ordered them to build a human pyramid. And they said, all right, the king says we're supposed to build a human pyramid. So the biggest, toughest guys got on the bottom, knelt down, and slowly but surely all the villagers created this huge human pyramid until they were one person away from getting the bird. And the smallest child in the village came forward to climb and climb and climb on top of this human pyramid to get all the way to the top. And she got within arm's length of the bird, and she reached out to grab the bird, and it flew away. And the villagers were distraught. They tried so hard to do something to please the king, and they didn't know how he was going to react. Was he going to be disappointed? Was he going to be angry? And they all got down and they all turned to face him, and when they looked at him, they saw that he was smiling. And he had a tear in his eye. And he said to the villagers, he said, "I'm sorry." He said, "I thought if I could possess that bird, that I would possess the most beautiful thing in the whole world. But then I watched you working together, building a crazy human ladder because you care about me and you wanted me to be happy. And I realized that I already have the most beautiful thing in the world. I have all of you." That's what community does. It fills us up like that. It filled the king's bucket. The bird wasn't going to fill the king's bucket. We all know that, but that's what he was trying to do. And he found it in the people around him. And so my hope is that all of you this morning have your buckets filled a little bit. But that you also have other communities and other places that fill your bucket, that spiritually renew you. Because that passage from Matthew that says, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there." And all of those beautiful things that you lifted up when we said, what is a healthy community? All of those pieces, that's what the Spirit of God looks like when it's in our midst. It's love and compassion and acceptance and understanding and grace and forgiveness and hope and laughter. It's all of those beautiful things. So may you be filled today, and may you fill others. Amen. So the whole offertory thing was a little weird because we can't pass a basket. And yet it felt strange to, have